No.
The off-road fraternity just loved the traditional early morning starts, with Harry Roscoe leading the field off in the Protea Card Raceco. The opposition were predicting Roscoe would not last the pace, with a veteran driver out to prove them wrong. Next away was Klaus Degener, who exchanged a few pleasantries with clerk of the course Marie Primich.
There is no penalty, but I mean it passed scrutineering. It should work through the duration of the event. Well, just realize that it's not working and don't shove the people because they're not going to hear you.
There's only one guy in front of me.
Mervyn Woods and Wayne Pettit were third away in their budget VW, which was to prove a headache for some of the big budget cars, including the much-fancied Bucks Carolyn-Kenny Scholthammer combination. Philip Malone and Richard Leake were the first of the Bucky Brigade to be flagged away, and were followed by the husband and wife team of Arnold and Estelle Mathieu. Selwyn Robinson, one of the characters of Eastern Cape Motorsport, and Don Broadhurst got off to a steady start in their VW, with Alfred van Vuren showing early signs that he was quite at home in the wet and slippery conditions. At the end of lap 1, Carolyn and Scholthammer had moved into the lead, followed by the Woods-Pettit combination and the Mathieu husband and wife team. Klaus Degener and Derek Pinoy, a former driver, now in the navigator's hot seat, were on a charge to make up time after a puncture, with a great tussle developing between Appie Reinecker and Lucas Dreyer and Alfred van Vuren and Piet Pelser. An anxious Brian Weeble was monitoring the progress of son Greg, who started in 13th place. Out in the ex-Carolyn car, Weeble and Warren Claassen were also on a charge and had worked their way through the field to 7th spot. Cassie Coetzee and Wiley Harrington were holding down a steady 8th place, with former national champion Fred Levesque and Richard Carolyn, brother of Bucks, completing the top 10. The conditions were providing for plenty of action, with Levesque and Carolyn closely bunched at the head of the Class 10 field. Plenty of activity in the pits at the end of lap 1. Klaus Degener had decided on a new rear tyre configuration, with Harry Roscoe lending a helping hand after dropping out of the event early on with gearbox problems. Cassie Coetzee had run into overheating and suspension troubles. It was a case of all hands to the pumps, and there was plenty of activity around the Toyota Hilux. Arnold and Estelle Mathieu were motoring along steadily and took full advantage of the misfortunes of others to move into the lead. They were followed by Mervyn Woods and Wayne Pettit, with Degener and Derek Pinoy charging hard in 3rd place. Greg Weeble, who competes under the handicap of having only one eye, and Warren Claassen continued to move up the field. The pair had made up 9 places to lie 4th. Western Transvaal farmers Api Reyneke and Lucas Dreyer, in their first season in Ford colours, had so far not run into any drama and were holding down a steady 5th place. Bucks Carolyn and Kenny Scholthammer, another new Springbok, were also hampered by a puncture. The pair managed to put the spare on back to front and lost more time resorting to more conventional methods. This dropped them back to 6th place. Former South African champion Fred Levesque was going along steadily at the head of Class 9 in the Motortech car. Behind Levesque were Alfred van Vieren and Piet Pelser, another crew to lose time through punctures, with Herman Sulwald leading Class 10 in an aging Sandmaster. Theo Coetzee and Ian Wedderburn were the lone Class 3 runners in the imported Chev, but were also to be sidelined with mechanical problems. With a healthy lead in the Class 7 Championship, Steve Parker and VZ Van Sale were taking matters easily and were lying 3rd in Class 7. Jackie Weldon and Andy Peaceful were lying 2nd in Class 5 after a steady drive. With the Meyer and Kutzer combination leading Class 2 in the ex-Abdul Variawa VW Baja. There were tyre problems too for Mervyn Woods and Wayne Pettit, who resorted to leaving the route and heading for the pits for fresh stocks. It was an exercise that dropped them back to 6th place. For Arnold and Estelle Mattia, it was the end of the road.
Well, the spring brake block on the left rear of the car, and it's just unfortunate. There's nothing I can do about it. It's over.
It was cruel luck for the Mattias, who were leading going into the last lap. This put the Degener-Pinoy combination back into the lead, with the event heading for an exciting finish. Greg Wiebel now found himself up in 2nd place, closely followed by Bucks Carolyn and Kenny Scholthammer, who was starting to mount pressure on the crews ahead of them. Api Reyneke and Lucas Dreyer were also still in the picture in 4th place and had taken a firm grip on Class 6. Mervyn Woods and Wayne Pettit were back on course and in 5th place after their detour to the pits, with a budget Merlin Mantis proving something of an embarrassment to the high-tech cars. Fred Levesque was still in charge of Class 9 in the Motortech entry, with a consistent Alfred van Vieren and Piet Pelser dominating Class 5 in the Toyota Hilux. There were no major dramas either for Herman Sulwald, with the ancient Sandmaster running like clockwork. Lap 4 saw Bucks Carolyn and Kenny Scholthammer back in the lead after Klaus Degener ran into more puncture problems. Greg Wiebel and Warren Claassen were now 2nd, but even for top crews, there are slight miscalculations. Klaus Degener and Derek Pinoy had to travel 40 kilometers on 3 wheels to find a jack that worked, and were on one of their customary charges to try and make up lost ground. They also had a few gate problems. Bucks Carolyn and Kenny Scholthammer, former off-road motorcycle star, were tightening the screws at the head of the field. Behind them, Klaus Degener and Derek Pinoy were still piling on the pressure, and it moved into second place ahead of Greg Wiebel and Warren Claassen in what was developing into a tense fight to the finish. Degener and Pinoy were really flying in an effort to catch Carolyn and Scholthammer. Behind them, Greg Wiebel and Warren Claassen were in close contact, with the race still wide open. Fred Levesque was still in charge of Class 9 after yet another steady drive, with the former champion on his way to 4th place overall. Despite their earlier unscheduled pit stop, Mervyn Woods and Wayne Pettit clinched Class 7 in an impressive performance in their Scrapyard Special. R.P. Reinecker and Lucas Dreyer slipped back 2 places in the closing stages to come home 6th overall, but must have been more than happy with a Class 6 victory in the Ford Courier. There was another Class 5 win for the ever-consistent Alfred van Vuren and Piet Pelser in the Toyota Hilux, who came in 7th overall. There was a well-deserved Class 10 victory for Herman Sulwald in the Sandmaster. A steady drive also saw Sulwald in the top 10, with the Sandmaster seeing out the distance to come in 8th overall. Anton Meyrung and Gerard Kutzer were 14th overall, but took the honours in Class 2. Up at the finish, there was more drama, with Bucks Carolyn and Kenny Scholthammer arriving to take the checkered flag minus their left front wheel. The wheel parted company with the car 8 kilometres from the finish, with Carolyn literally ploughing his way through the line. The traditional bubbly always goes down well, but Carolyn will be keen to avoid 3-wheel finishes in the future.
We've just been chasing and putting the pressure on these guys, but the wheel came off about 8 k's from the end here, and we decided instead of stopping there, we'd give the German one. So we drove without the wheel and still beat him. That's what we wanted to do.
The anxiety of being sit down, calm down.
Second across the line were Klaus Degener and Derek Pinoy after an eventful drive, with the pair losing valuable time through a string of punctures. Brian Wiebel was still going through his anxiety crisis as he waited for son Greg and Warren Claassen to come through to take 3rd place.
Well done, my son. And unfortunately, we picked up another right front flat. Same wheel went flat yesterday. And try to go with it as long as possible because we haven't got a jack to jack the car up with. We had to get somewhere where there were people to lift the car up to change the wheel. And of course, lost time there. And then we stole back, I think, about 5 minutes we stole back free. So it was a close race.
We started a long way back. I fell through the field. We started 13th this morning and had a lot of catching up to do. So I really drove my best.
A narrow victory gave Bucks Carolyn a hat-trick of wins in the Settler 500. It was a race full of drama with plenty of action still to come in the remainder of the Total GTE Off-Road Championship.